So remember, we recently had another parable of the vineyard. Remember, the people hired at different hours of the day to go in and receive and work in the vineyard, and they all received the same wage. This is another parable about a vineyard with a somewhat different slant. Here we have the people in charge of the vineyard, and we see what they do. Well, as often happens when you're in charge of something, you use it for your own benefit. Whether it's in religion or in business or in government. And that's what we see here. And when it says, oh no, the tenant, the vineyard will be taken away from you and given to a people who will produce its fruits. Sometimes over the centuries that's been interpreted as being, it'll be taken away from the Jews and given to the Christians, and stupid, evil nonsense like that. It's not about that. It's about anybody being in charge of anything, anytime, and just using it for their own advancement. There's plenty of that in all these fields that I've mentioned. Here they want money and power. It's money and power. It's always about money and power. Or power in order to maintain and guarantee your money, like we see in Washington. Or in careerism in the church or in business or in anything like that. We have to really be careful of that. And we send prophets, as the parable says, to remind people of what it's really all about, and of course we get rid of them. Like in our own time, Martin Luther King, for example, trying to remind us of how we should be living instead, and, we knock them off. And of course, Jesus is the main example, who was killed by precisely religious authorities and political authorities because he challenged the status quo, the social quo, the racist quo, the economic quo, status quo, and was killed for it. So we always have to ask ourselves, how are we managing ourselves? What are we allowing to well up within us and inspire us and motivate us? Here's where the vineyard gets taken away, gets removed from from something out there, working in the vineyard, to working this vineyard in here, which is what the readings are talking about, isn't it? The first reading, and Jesus quotes it, this Isaiah 5, Jesus quotes it in the parable. They built a hedge and a winepress and a tower. He's directly referring to that first reading. And it says, this vineyard is producing sour grapes, so the vineyard itself is at fault, not the managers. And it says the vineyard is the house of Israel, the beloved of the Lord. Or it's any one of us. And we're not producing the fruits. We're producing, as the reading says, we're producing bloodshed, outcry, or as the psalm says, we're being trampled down, not by something from the outside, but by something from the inside that's causing us not to bear fruit. We're the vineyard, we're the vine. So of course that reminds us of the beautiful, famous parable of Jesus in John 15. And one of those verses is the gospel acclamation today. So where Jesus says, I'm the vine. I'm the vine and you are the branches. So we have to remain connected to the vine, connected to Jesus if we want to bear fruit. We have to have his thoughts and his inspirations and his feelings and his heart and his mind if we're going to bear fruit. That's what the parable says as well. As long as you abide in the vine, you will bear much fruit, but if not, you're cut off like a branch and wither and are burned. You can't bear fruit. And I have sent you to go and bear a fruit that will last, as we just chanted. So we're the vine, and we're all the branches, we're all connected, so it's like the image of the body, that Paul uses. We're all connected to one another as well as to Jesus. And so we should all be inspired by that one source, with the sap of the Holy Spirit, if you like, to run through us and nourish us. So we have to continue the imagery, bear a fruit that will last, bear the fruits of the Spirit that Paul speaks about to the Galatians. Remember the fruits of the Spirit, the main ones are love. Remember, that's what Jesus said, one new commandment I give you, by this will all people know or not, that you are my disciples. Love one another as I have loved you. So love, joy, and peace. So a sign that our vine is flourishing and that we're staying connected to Jesus are those first three major fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, and peace. So if we're not living in a constant, consistent, basically, inner atmosphere of love, joy, and peace, we're not staying connected to the vine. There's something wrong. And that's for our own happiness as well as for the flourishing of, the whole vine. We're all connected. Love, joy, peace. There are 6 other fruits that Paul mentions. Kindness, goodness, patience. They're in pretty short supply these days, aren't they? In the media especially. Kindness, goodness, and patience. And then finally, it says, fidelity, meekness, and self-control. So all those very gentle but powerful virtues are fruits of the Spirit that should be the testimony, bearing witness to the fact that we are or are not remaining connected to the vine. And those fruits they're possible because they're coming from Jesus. They're not coming from us. Of course, they're beyond our strength or our ability, but that's the whole point of being Christian, to stay connected to the vine so that the vine can flourish. And let's apply that, to conclude, to this very beautiful second reading today from Philippians. Brothers and sisters, have no anxiety at all. Wow, wouldn't we love that today? In our private lives, in our social lives, in our national life, in our planetary life, have no anxiety about anything. How is that possible? Well, if you stay connected to the vine, it's the fruits of the Spirit that will dominate your psyche. Anxiety is it's very instinctive. It rises up, in unstable and threatening situations, but it doesn't have to dominate our hearts and minds at all. What good is it? Tell me one good thing it does. Does it actually change the situation? No, it just gives you heart disease and cholesterol or whatever else. It's ridiculous. Serves no purpose. So get beyond it. Get over yourself. Literally get over yourself by attaching to a higher reality, or a deeper reality, if you will, rooted in the vine, Jesus Christ. And those fruits of the Spirit will bloom from there. And we can ask for it. It goes on to say, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. So let your needs be known. The Father knows already, but let them be known. That's a good outlet for your anxiety, so to speak. And not just for yourself. Don't forget, we're all branches of the vine. So not just for my job or my spouse or whatever. No. What about everybody else in this threatening and challenging time that the whole world is going through with the pandemic and the political instability? Pray for the whole thing. But let it come from love and hope and compassion. Let that bloom forth. You're right there at the source. It can well up. The Spirit wells up, to life eternal, leaping up, as John 4 says. So let that prayer well up from our hearts constantly, in thanksgiving already for what we have and what we will be given. Then, Paul says, the peace of God, there's that great fruit of the Spirit, one of the major 3. The peace of God that surpasses all understanding, luckily for us, it's above and beyond our minds. It surpasses all understanding. It's very unreasonable. It's completely irrational to have that peace in the midst of all this. But that's because it's above all this, not just in the midst of all this. And we can have that. And then it can flow down and influence not only our own hearts, but the rest of the world. So the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, literally, It will guard your hearts and minds, literally your thoughts, in Christ Jesus. Again, because it's above your heart and your mind, especially above your mind. I love the phrase of Richard Rohr that says, there's no such thing as peace of mind. If you're in your mind, you're not at peace. And if you have peace, you're not in your mind. That's really profound. So peace does not reside in your, monkey mind, fussing and fretting and fuming. It's in your heart, which can get beyond its fussing and fretting and fuming and its anxiety by staying connected to that deeper, being rooted where it really is rooted, where we are rooted in the vine, and letting the love, joy, peace, goodness, meekness, patience of the Spirit well up within us. That sap of the Spirit. And then finally, this beautiful concluding section is very famous, and rightly so. It's non-sectarian. Listen. Brothers and sisters, finally, whatever is true, anywhere, the arts, the science, whatever is true, and it's plural, by the way, whatever things are true, whatever is honorable, literally venerable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely. I love that. Whatever is lovely. Whatever is charmingly beautiful, whatever is attractive, whatever is lovely, whatever is gracious. Again, it literally means, whatever is worthy of respect, of good repute. Whatever is gracious, if there's any excellence at all, it's the pagan Greek word for virtue. Again, I say it's beyond religion here. If there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So there you have a good solution, very practical. Whatever is lovely, gracious, true, honorable, think on those things. You can, It's up to us. We don't have to think about the election. We have to think about whatever is lovely, good, and true, and then we'll be ready for everything, including the election. Provided we keep ourselves wonderfully anchored in the vine, so that the fruits of the Spirit can flow out to calm us down, to fill us with hope and joy, and then wonderfully enough, that can flow to the other branches. It will influence the world and everyone around us, because that's what we're radiating. That's what we're connecting to. So keep on doing what you've learned and received and heard and seen in me. And elsewhere, Paul says, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. And that's the point. We're all connected to Christ, and we're not just imitating Christ, but we're living Christ's life, or Christ is living his life in us by having his love, joy, and peace flow into us. Peace which the world cannot give, as he says himself in John's Gospel. A joy which the world cannot take away. No one can take away, as he also says. Nothing in the world can take that joy away. And the love, of course, is invincible. Invincible. And finally, the last sentence, then the God of peace will be with you. And that's a dependable promise on God's part. The God of peace will be with us. And our God is a God of peace and will be with us. So in these difficult times, let us recommit to being who we are. Branches of the vine, the true vine who is Jesus. Which means that the sap of the Spirit and all those wonderful fruits will organically and naturally and simply flow through us if we get our own nonsense out of the way, or rather it'll wash all that nonsense out of the way if we just relax into it, go with the flow, as they say, and let that richness and beauty flow out then into the world. You'll change your own lives, and who knows? It might even change the world.